All right, family. This episode, I feel like in advance we're going to call it the Power Hour because we are powering through some technical difficulties as we've gotten started. But I have a feeling the information that we're going to gather is going to be amazing for you, every emerging creator, every dreamer who's listening to this podcast. I've got some friends from literally across the world. I didn't even know they were across the world when I reached out to them. Without further ado, please, I'm going to say your names, but correct me if I'm wrong because I've only written it and I've not spoken it until now. So, Olivier
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Nathalie.
yeah.
Okay, so Olivier and Nathalie, I'm not gonna butcher your last name, so you can say your last name for me, and tell them all about what you do for the wonderful world of podcasting.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for having us. So we are the founders of podcast Leadflow, and basically what we do with podcasts is we solve the problem of being able to connect with your listeners. And we're basically helping anyone who's looking into a podcast strategy to grow their business with their podcast.
Now, I know right now podcasting is I mean, it seems like it's been expanding since the early days of it seemed like only Apple users on iTunes were using podcasts, but now all the major streamers, I mean, even Netflix has gotten into the game. And so it seems like it's a pretty exciting time for the world of podcasts. But like you said, there's obviously a gap for the everyday podcaster, the bedroom podcasters, if you will, figuring out how to take their ideas, get systems around them, obviously get the listeners one, bought into the stories and the ideas that they're sharing, but creating that ecosystem and around the creator business that they're trying to make. So I wonder, what are the biggest challenges you feel like that you've observed with emerging creators as they try to build out their podcast businesses?
So do you want me to answer or I can answer? Yeah. So I think that the biggest thing we are seeing is that people see podcasting as a strategy, but it's just a tool, right? So if you don't have a system in place, if you don't have a process, if you're not strategic about what you're talking about, right, and what do you want people to do next, then all you're doing is you're entertaining, right? Which is what a lot of people are doing. So because they are delivering great content, they think that it's enough for people to say, hey, I'm going to go see them, on their website. I'm going to connect with them and book a call and all that stuff. It doesn't work that way, especially now with the attention span that people have. So you have to be way more strategic. And that's one thing we found. People are just still relying on Apple and Spotify, just crossing their finger that people will find them.
You know, what's interesting with you saying that, I actually started reaching out to some of the streamers as part of this second season and just trying to just learn more about the ecosystem, because my question was really rooted in, okay, I'm sending my podcast through one distributor, but I'm noticing that it doesn't look native to the different podcast platforms. And so I'm like trying to solve some of those problems. So of course, me just trying to be resourceful, I get on LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, who does podcasts for Apple? Who does podcasts for Spotify? And so I end up on a call with somebody from Apple, and he was talking about how excited they were that they were going to sort of like this video forward strategy. And then as part of our conversation, it was that light bulb moment where he said, hey, you can, at most, you can submit your show to be viewed by the editorial team for a possible feature. But outside of that, the streamers are not pushing, and they're not helping you elevate your presence as a podcaster. And a lot of that activity is put on creators. And so I wonder, what can, especially if you're thinking about somebody who's probably, and I'm thinking about myself, somebody who is investing time, energy, and you're doing the booking, you're doing the show prep, you're doing, as we saw on this call, you're trying to be the tech person, all those different hats and roles, and sometimes promoting and making sure that you're actually getting the show out to customers is almost like the last mile that doesn't happen sometimes. What are some untapped methods and strategies that creators are leaving on the table that you feel like, man, if people just only knew how maybe not easy but simple it is if they put this type of system in place that they can reach the people that they're trying to reach with their shows?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people are still thinking that they're still focusing their time on content creation and like producing and publishing, and they think that like once the episode has been liked for a week, then they are all on to the next episode. What they need to do is they need to start seeing some of these episodes as assets for their business that they can keep reusing. So it's like not relying again on Apple and Spotify to get people to consume, but to own your platform, to do it in a place where you control the next step. You are able to connect with people. And I think that's what people are missing. Still too much focusing on the content. Content is a commodity now. What people want is connection, is conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So that's really the big piece. And that comes from system. Like you said, it's the before, the during, and the after. And people focus on the during, like let's record a great show, have a great conversation, and then, they publish or they give it to their agency, and then that's it. They move on to the next topic.
Yeah, people did listen to you for like half an hour, and you need to give them a way to talk to you. Otherwise, it's just a monologue. If you want to start a conversation, they need to have a way to start a conversation with you.
And how do you feel like it's manageable for creators to start facilitating those conversations? Is it just as simple as saying, hey, this is how you can find us on social media, or this is how you can, like you said before, book the call? Like, what are some effective ways to start those conversations with your audience?
I think it's very similar to when you're sharing a piece of information or a lead magnet and you want to put it in front of your audience, right? Again, if we take the example of Apple, Spotify, these platforms, they want to grow their audience. They want the listener to stay there. So you can share this because you want the reviews, you want all of this, I get it. But this is not what's growing your business, right? Downloads of not realistic numbers. I think you have some stat. Yeah. I don't know if you remember. They are not even like real downloads numbers. It's way lower than that. And you have to also, I call it like repurposing, but also take the episode and share it a lot of different ways. So you said social media, but you can also share it with your existing audience. You can share it at networking events, right? Like it becomes an asset that basically you can repurpose, and get it in front of your audience, basically.
So, and another way, if you want to start a conversation, let's take an example. If your episode is about solving a problem, many times during the episode, people are going to say, yeah, but how does it apply to me? My case is special. So what you can do is below the episode, you have a form asking like 2 or 3 questions that is going to help people to solve their problem. So you ask about the context. What is their real problem?
What have they tried? Things like that.
And so they submit this form, and then you can reply either manually or automatically to them about their specific problem. So with that way, you really start a conversation.
I think this is some really practical information that creators can use to start thinking beyond, to your point, entertainment, and thinking, how can I start engaging my audience to, one, sustain the work that I'm doing. But I do wonder, are there things that creators might think are effective in terms of ways to start conversations, ways to get people off platform to either book a call, to move forward with them? Are there things that they're doing that they may not realize are just ineffective? Like it might seem like you should do it, but that people don't respond to this. Like what are those things?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically we talk a lot about this is the call to action. What do you want people to do? So in your episode, if you say, follow me on Instagram, I'm also on YouTube, leave me a review, like all the things that you're asking, first, they are for you. They are not on real benefit for the listener, right? So on these key episodes, what I call the asset episodes, you want to have a call to action where the purpose is for people to take the next step. So it's not about like converting every listener, but it's about giving an opportunity to the person that has listened and is like, okay, I'm interested in that. How can I apply this? And right away, you give them an opportunity to connect with you, right? So the call to action needs to be unique. Ideally, it needs to be repeated. So like in the middle, you can say, and by the way, I'm going to have a tool for you below the episode where you're going to be able to get a practical advice on how you can do this yourself based on where you're at. And then at the end, you say the same thing. Okay, if you enjoyed this episode, if you want to start implementing this, there is a tool below. Just say the URL as well in case they listen on Apple and Spotify or another place, and say, just fill out the form. I'll send you an email that is completely customized. That's what we do with Podcast Leadflow, by the way. That's completely customized for you. That is unique. So when you do this, then when you create an episode like this that solves a problem for the listener, one, you create an asset. Two, you have kind of like a lead magnet generator, right? Because everybody gets something unique based on the context that they share, right? And that's something that you can repurpose and you can track, because downloads are really a vanity metric, right? Download is not equal business. Download is not equal money. But if you can track back, okay, I got 30 people that filled out this form, 2 booked a call, 1 bought a $7,500 package. Now you've got metrics. Now you've got KPIs. You know that this type of episode talks to your listener. That example is a client example, by the way. I didn't make it up. So it's like real numbers. And it's also showing that you don't need that many, right? Because we're on quality versus quantity.
And something that people think when they see downloads, they think one download equal to one listener, and that's not the case. Because if you've got somebody that subscribed to your show on Apple, automatically they count as a download even if they don't listen to the show.
That is very interesting. So the more people that sub to your show essentially on their phone, yes, you've gotten downloads, but they're not listeners. And I think that is very, very key for people who might be seeing like, oh my gosh, well, I'm getting traction. I see my numbers growing, but why is it that I'm not converting? That is a very good unlock right there. I wonder, are there any other metrics and or things that people should be measuring to actually gauge the success of their shows?
So I think you want to define what success is, right? Because there are people who run a podcast because they want sponsors. That's how they want to make money with the podcast. So for them, downloads kind of make sense because the sponsor is going to look at how many subscribers you have. But if you're running a podcast to grow your business, then the metric to look at is leads. How many leads I'm getting for the business? Because like if you're working with an agency or a podcast, a strategist, a podcast manager, and they cannot tell you, like you spend money on the agency, but the agency cannot tell you what it brings to the business, the ROI, people are going to leave the agency, right? You're not going to continue to pay for a service if you don't know if it brings business. So you have to define what success is first, but
For you, yeah.
for you. But usually
Yes.
it's leads if that's your goal is to grow the business.
And after you define the win, let's just say for a lot of early stage creators, I think leads has to be it, because if you, yes, you can look at downloads, but I think I've heard this phrase floating around: exposure does not pay the bills. And exposure can be great, but to your point, I think leads is where we should be paying our attention. So if we were to think through an ironclad strategy for somebody who might be on the first season of their podcast and trying to start from the ground up, how would you advise them based upon your professional outlook? Hey, this is how you should approach building your show, and help them manage their expectations.
Yeah. So I think it's really, the idea is really to think with the end in mind, like being really clear about who is my ideal audience, who am I speaking to, what do they need to hear from me in order to take just the next step. Not book a call, buy my stuff. It's not about that. We are not selling on podcasts. We are connecting, right? So we just want them to take the next step. And the next step can look like filling out a form to get a bit more customized, personalized information, right? You can have, the generic lead magnet, give me your name and email, I'll send you a guide, but we know where these freebies are going now, right? People sign up to freebies like crazy, and they sometimes, most of the time, they don't open them, right? So you really need to look into, like, again, reverse engineer and figure out, what do I need to talk about for people to understand, to relate to what I'm talking about, right? So you understand the problem they have and you have a solution for it. That they need to understand what your values are, like who you stand as a person. And that's why podcasting is so amazing at that, because they get to hear your voice. If you're passionate about what you're talking about, like if you believe in what you're saying, it's really important, right? And you need to give them something that makes them curious for the next step. That sounds interesting. It's not like I want to buy the stuff. I want to work with him or her. It's about, I want to find out a bit more to see if that's something, I want to.
And something that people don't do enough is they think that the episode is gone in 48 hours, and it's something that can be reused many times. You have to promote it. It's not going to happen magically, but you have to send it to social media on different platforms so people get multiple chance to view that you posted that episode. Because if you just do it once, then people maybe were not ready the first time, but 6 months from now, if you're still promoting that episode, they might be at the right time to listen to that episode. So if promoting it once, like in a couple of times or in a week, is not enough.
It's like doing nothing, it's very similar than when you're posting on social media, right? You have to post different type of things, right? Sometimes you are inspiring, sometimes you're entertaining. And I know some podcasters, they want to have guests. Sometimes they want to inspire, share stories, and that might not relate directly to the lead, right? But so you can have different type of episode, but among those episodes, you absolutely need to have those solo episodes where the sole purpose is to attract the lead. So to turn that into a lead magnet, basically, that you keep reusing.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be every episode.
It's not, it doesn't have to be. You can have guests, you can have, more, lightweight, like more about like mindset, or even like, fun, a bit out of, your services or your product, but you have to be strategic and have some of these asset episodes where the purpose is really to get the lead to raise their hand and say, tell me more.
If you want it to be used for your business, you have to treat it as a business, and you need to have that in mind. So
I do want to take somewhat of a tangent here, because we've got to acknowledge the geographical difference. So first and foremost, talk about the difference, or is there a difference between trends that you see in the US and in France?
Okay, so so we live in France. We are both French and American, but we don't work with the French market. So I wouldn't be able to tell you, basically. But actually, we've been talking with an agency that is in France, in Paris. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
And she was saying that in France we usually like marketing and stuff behind 4 or 5 years. That's kind of like the story, right? We are always behind. And but she was saying that in podcasting, people, especially like in paid advertising and things like that, France is kind of like in the game. Who knew?
So most of your clients, it seems, are they US or US and Canada? Like, talk to me about the types of people that you're working with.
It's US, Canada, UK, Australia a lot.
New Zealand.
And New Zealand. Yeah, basically English speaking. So, I mean, you saw, right, our profiles, our website, everything is in English. So we actually moved back to France in 2005 because we moved to the US after school. It was in 1995. We moved there and we stayed there for 10 years. That's where our 3 kids were born. And we moved back in 2005 to start our business. So we've never worked in France, never really had a desire to, and that's when we started the business. So that was 20 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, do you feel like with what you're observing in terms of trends and the growth of the creator economy, do you feel like podcasting still is going to be a dominant force? Like you talked about it being a tool versus a what did you say? A tool versus a strategy. But in it being a tool that people are using, like how do you see it evolving and growing? Because I saw you nodding along saying you feel like it's still going to be dominant. How do you see it evolving in the years to come?
Well, I think that with AI also coming into play is playing a big part, but it's like what people want now is they want to go back to connect with humans. So they want to hear like real, genuine conversations. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but they are okay with the not so edited, when you like, the and, things like that. Like it doesn't have to be perfect polished because of all the AI crap that we are seeing, even like podcasts that are 100% AI, which might be or might not be good. I don't know. I'm not checking, but people crave connection, human connection. And this is an opportunity to have that, to be able to actually listen to really an interactive, conversation with, everything that can happen in that.
And with that level of authenticity, like I think that there's obviously a story that, because I love the fact that you kind of took me all the way back to 2005 and how you guys started your business and everything. What is it that makes you so passionate about this space? I mean, you're a married couple, you're working together. So obviously that comes with, it's like, okay, we seeing each other all the time. I'm getting on your nerves, you're getting on my nerves and all the above. Like, how in the world do you become so passionate about this? And it's the driving force behind what you do and you spend so much time doing it as a couple.
So I think goals evolve, right? When we moved back to France in 2005, we had 3 kids. The youngest was 6 months. So the objective and the vision was to create a business around our lifestyle. We wanted to be able to go bring the kids to school, get them back, go to the activities, right? So we didn't want to have the crazy life we had in San Francisco, where we were the first parent to drop the kid and the last one to pick up the kid, right? And then you have to bring flowers the next day because you feel so bad that you give flowers to the school for being late. So that was, like you have different seasons in business. In our life, back when the kids were small, the goal was that. How can we create a business doing something that we love, that we're good at, that gives us the money so that we can, live, our kids can grow, they can go to the school they want to, and things like that. Then now that the kids are adults and are out of school, it's just the two of us. So now our drive is still doing something that we enjoy. Olivier has always dreamed about being his own boss, not me. I'm here because I'm supporting him, and it's been known. I've shared this many, many times. I'm doing this for love. I'm not doing this because I want to be a business owner. So that's my vision. That's like why. That's my why. But right now we're looking into when we're going to retire, right? So we are looking into that. That's the new drive, right? It's like, how do we create a business that can support us when we want to later in life start to maybe work less and do other things.
And for the podcast part is there's a lot of opportunity, because people believe like they have 50 listeners is not enough, but it's plenty. If you've got a room with 50 people, you would be really happy. And so you don't need to have like a stadium full of people to listen to you to create a good business. It doesn't matter if your podcast is small, you can still make a good living from it, driving leads to your business.
Yeah.
And that's what really drives me, because there's so many opportunity for so many people to go in that direction.
Yeah. So the story there, I don't know if Olivier had shared this with you, but like the idea is that we're solving problems. He sees a problem and he wants to come up. He comes up with several ideas a day. Okay. So, but he sees a problem and he wants to find a solution. So here there was a gap between the listener and somebody that's raising their hand to say, I want to work with you. And what we saw is I still have it, but I have a podcast about our other side of the business. We build membership sites for people, and it has 137 episodes, and I stopped it. And the reason I stopped it is because I lost the motivation. I couldn't see what it was bringing to the business. Right? So you have these episodes, and then you have clients, and then clients will tell me, yeah, I'm listening to your podcast. I really like it. It's a short episode. It's no fluff. It was unedited, like 10 minutes. But like, I couldn't see if it was really bringing to the business. It's that gap that existed. So I basically stopped doing it. And that's when it was like, okay, can we do something, with AI and also with this idea, because things are moving so fast, how can we come up with something that we can quickly experiment, right? Quickly test. That's really the idea with Podcast Leadflow. Our product is that in minutes you turn an episode into a lead magnet and you can see if it works, right? It is not going to give you more traffic because you still have to share it, right? However, if you put it in front of the right people, and they are the right people, you're going to get the best conversion that you've ever had, because now you give them something truly unique.
Now, if you could just talk about the intricacies of the work that you do, because I really think that for a lot of emerging creators, they're probably Googling and trying to figure out, okay, what's the tech stack I need? If I need to reach out for some help, what kind of help do I need? And I think you've really made the case for lead magnets and making leads that driving force of what you are paying attention to. But walk me through, like, as a potential client, like, what is it that somebody could expect when working with you guys?
Yeah, sure. So actually the tech is very minimal, very simple. I know people very often get overwhelmed with tech. Oh my gosh, what tools am I going to need? It's pretty straightforward. So Podcast Leadflow is a SaaS solution. So when you're in it, you give it your RSS feed, you choose an episode, and then you basically have buttons that say generate the transcript, generate the form, and then it creates the form with the page. So the player, the page, the thank you page. And then you can share just that. You can go back, change the questions. You can take the form and put it on your own website if you already have a website and you want to put it right there. And that's all you need. So you need your RSS feed and you need a Podcast Leadflow license. That's all. Nothing else.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So when people fill out these forms, to be a bit more technical, so you understand the flow all the way, you share the page. People can listen to the episode. They like it. They want to see how to implement this. They fill out the form to give context about where they're at. They enter their name and their email, and they send a form. It sends them an email with their unique lead magnet just for them. It is using what they shared, and based on that, it tells them either a 4-step plan, what to do this week. It really depends. You choose the format of the lead magnet, right? And as the host, you get CC'd on the email. That means you can continue the conversation if you want to. So if you're someone that has high ticket and that's sales call, you can continue the conversation and see where that goes, right? But the person can also and should be added to your CRM, where you can use your follow-up. So that is the funnel. So if you already have a funnel where people are coming in through like a free piece of content, and then you have a nurture sequence, right? Then basically you can plug this and they can follow, that same funnel, except that they're going to be so much warmer because they gave you information about them. That means that the pain is really, really real, right? And you can go back and look at the answers that they gave to the questions. So if you hop on calls, like if you do high ticket and you sell on calls, then you have such valuable information to start the call.
I love that. I love it. Last but not least, I want to ask you about, you mentioned how you're working to get to a point where obviously you're thinking about retirement and thinking about, okay, what are you going to do in this next chapter? I'm curious, in terms of legacy, what do you really want your children, the people that you've served, what do you hope that they remember most about working with you? And obviously your children not working with you, but what do they remember the most about the impact that you made on their lives?
Actually, all three have worked in the business at some point.
That's
We
nice.
have one that still does, yeah. So I think what we taught them, even though we might not have done it the best way, looking back when we were younger, okay, is really that lifestyle. It's like they are entrepreneurs. Our son has 2 businesses and a full-time job. Okay. And he is still having that lifestyle, right? Where it really matters, the vacation and like the things that he does, around the business, around the 2 businesses, but also around work, right? Our daughter is the same. She's in Switzerland. One of our daughters is in Switzerland, and they travel a lot. They visit things a lot. They like that's one thing that really I think that they got, and I think also it's that generation, at least in France, where they are more into life first and work second. But basically, I think that's all three. That's what we taught them.
I think what they got from us, if you work hard, then you can succeed. So that's basically they've seen that through us.
I think they'll say consistency, resilience, things like that. Because it hasn't always been easy, right, obviously. But I think that's what they got.
I do want to double click on that. Why is that so important to you, especially the lifestyle piece? Because I think in America there's an allure of hustle culture where it goes back to that example of you're dropping your kid off. They're the first one there. You might be the last one to pick them up depending on what your commute is looking like. And, just trying to squeeze in that extra hour of work. But why is it so important, the lifestyle piece? Is there something that informs that value for you, or is it just something that's just been there all the time?
For me, it was like I wanted to have a connection with my kids, not just like being a stranger with with them. So I wanted to be there if they needed me. So even if I was working at home, the office was always at home. So I could work a lot, but if they wanted me, they could just come and say, I've got this problem, can you help me? And so that's what I wanted with my kids, is being there for them, even though I had to work a lot for the business.
And you know, the 10 years that we spent there, I mean, so much commute. We were in San Francisco. So much commute. I fell asleep at the wheel twice. One was on a bridge.
The Golden Gate Bridge?
Not the Golden Gate, the San Mateo Bridge. The San Mateo between Hayward and Foster City. So, so crazy life. You know, you've got money. We had a cabin in the mountain, but no time to spend it. Like we had like 2 weeks of vacation per year in Hawaii, and then that's it. The rest of the time you're driving, working. On the weekends you have kids activities because you have to do that so that they can, you know, be with other kids. And you want, as an expat, you have to do that. Otherwise you don't meet anybody, right? So just crazy, like you said, you know, like running and like chasing something. And that's not happiness. That's not. So that's the thing we found when we moved back. It's like, slow down, right? Slow down and and enjoy family a lot more.
Yeah.
If you could sum that up in one word, I feel like Olivier used the word connection when he talked to the kids, but you said when we moved back, we were able to, we weren't chasing that anymore, and you found, like, what, in one word, what do you feel like you found?
Freedom, right? We were chained to a business, right? Like golden calves in the Silicon Valley, right? Being really, really well paid. It's like the pain of disconnect, like, was huge. And you know, I mean, you are in US, you know, like you
know it all too well. Yes.
You know the money you make, so you get the car, you get the second car, you get the third car, you get the cabin in the mountain. Okay, let's upgrade the cabin in the mountain. So you're like in this consuming, constantly running, like you're not pausing, never pausing, right? So that's what we were able to do here, is really to slow down, to simplify things and do it on our terms. So that's why I say freedom, because this is on our terms.
Now, I haven't got my house in the mountains yet, no cabin in the mountains yet. But what I will say is, I think you really struck a nerve. I think I jokingly said about powering through at the beginning of the episode, but I think that is indicative of a lot of people who are even trying to maybe find their way as creators. You're like powering through and literally trying to will something into existence. And whether that's your business, whether that's the idea of what you're chasing after. But I think you really have struck a nerve in this conversation. And it's something that I'm going to just try to camp out at in future conversations. And that's, number one, something you covered earlier in the conversation. And that is defining the win, like not getting distracted by the vanity metrics. And for some people, yes, downloads are the thing that you need to chase. For some people, leads is where you need to focus your attention. But I think the layer beneath it, in terms of why you have to get so clear on the win, is if you're not careful, you can find yourself just powering through to do something that, quite honestly, is not really what you're aiming for. And I think what you tapped into there was the freedom piece. It was the connection piece. And if that is ultimately what you're pursuing, you can get there if you're clear about the goal. But it's harder to get there if you're just busy going from place to place, thing to thing, living what other people are living and doing what other people are doing and essentially chasing the vanity metrics that, hey, they're great to have, but it might not be what you want.
Exactly.
And I think you really have hit on something there. And I'm so glad that while we were here to talk about podcasting, you guys really have really been able to get at a quality of life for creators.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely amazing.
I think, you know, and I think this goes for any business. Any business, no matter what you are doing, the longevity, the consistency, right, is only going to be there if what you're doing is aligned with your vision and what you actually want. And what you want might change. And that's why you love to talk about running experiment. Let's run an experiment. It's always like, let's run an experiment. Let's run an experiment. So, because when you do that, you're into action, and then there is a result. And then you can determine, okay, I want to do more of that, or no, I don't want to do that. But when you have a goal, then it's aligned, you know, like you're doing something that's aligned with your vision. It helps you get there to where you want. That's where you don't procrastinate, right? That's where you power through. All the people that say they're going to do something, but they don't do it, deep down, do they really, really want to do it? Or are they trying to do it because other people have told them that's what they should be doing? Or they see someone and they want the same thing. So like, oh, if I want the same thing, then I have to do the same thing, right? So it's true to any business. It's that longevity, and then being able to like keep doing, you know, keep doing it. It has to be that what you're doing is aligned with your goal. And your goal can evolve, but like you have to have a goal.
You have to have a goal. And number one, I feel like we're new friends here because I feel like I could talk to y'all all day, all night. It's evening where y'all are. I think it's about just afternoon where we are. But I just want to, one, thank you so much for your time. And I think if there's anything people walk away with from this conversation, I think it's to get clear on what you want. And the metrics, the partnerships, the things that you're looking for can align with that. And before we go, I must ask you to let everybody know, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you if they want to take the next step with you?
Yeah, sure. So actually we are going to use Podcast Leadflow, you know, with this episode. So if you go to podcastleadflow.com/Mark, MARK, yeah.
Come on, I have a URL, y'all. Go ahead.
Then you'll be able to connect with us there. So you'll see a Podcast Leadflow form. You'll answer a couple of questions, and it's going to give you a piece of advice or a next step based on where you're at. So that's how you can connect with us.
I'm going to go to podcastleadflow.com/Mark after this episode, and I'm going to check it out myself. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Olivier and Nathalie. You have just been such a blessing to me, and I'm sure by extension, everybody who's going to be listening to this episode. You've given us so much homework. I mean, literally off the top of my head, I could run down the list of, you talked about repurposing and making sure that we're using our episodes as assets, and, you know, doing the work to make sure that we're clear about our goals. And so even with just those few things, I think people are going to find themselves miles ahead of the game. And so with that, I thank you. You are welcome back in the Convo Room anytime.
Awesome.
Appreciate you for coming through.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark.